What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here. So a few weeks ago, I told you guys I was going to be on a short hiatus. I didn't tell you why. Well, the reason was I went on a vacation to Costa Rica. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it. If you don't like this sort of thing, you know, go ahead and click off. You don't have to watch it. But for those of you that's been asking about my trip, figure I may as well just make a video about it as opposed to individually writing everybody a paragraph or two about whatever. So, starting off, we flew into Liberia, and for those of you that don't know, I am absolutely terrified of flying, so I was already freaking out. We're booked on American Airlines, which I'm absolutely not a fan of, so I wasn't happy about that either. But surprisingly, the flight there wasn't so bad. We had a really short layover in Miami, and then we were off straight to Costa Rica. We landed and got a shuttle to our rental car, and once on the road, I was absolutely terrified. I had no idea that people in Costa Rica drove like fucking maniacs, man. Most of the roads were 2-lane roads, so people were just super comfortable passing around cars on the wrong side of the road. And I'm okay with that, but just, I'm not cool with it when I'm going up a hill or around a curve like normal people. But these dudes did not have that fear. They would do that shit on a fucking bike, on a moped, whatever the fuck they were on. They did not care. One thing we noticed that seemed to be a recurring theme throughout this trip was people in Costa Rica do not give a fuck, man. Not the people, not the kids, not the dogs, nobody. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about anybody else. They just care about living the chill life, man. That's kind of dope on one hand, but on another hand, it's a little bit frustrating. But another thing that was terrifying about these roads, man, they were doing a lot of construction on the main highway. So you'd be driving one way, and then all of a sudden you'd be shifted over onto the other side of the highway with no warning whatsoever. We just followed whatever people in front of us were doing and hoped that they were doing the right thing. Our first stop was a place called Vieja, and there we stayed at this great place called Tenorio. It was run by this super nice married couple that was amazingly accommodating. The cool thing is, right when we walked up, one of the owners took us out back to where they had this great trail and showed us a sloth that was up in a tree with its baby. And we couldn't get a really good look at it, but it was still pretty cool.
Can't really tell what it is.
We did investigate the trail later on, and it was actually pretty awesome. I know. The room was small, but we had everything we needed. 2 small beds, a fridge, really cool bathroom. The one thing I was afraid of was the fact that the place didn't have air conditioning. And before leaving, I saw that it was going to be in the upwards of 95 degrees. And I was terrified because I get really, really grumpy when it's hot. But luckily that wasn't a problem, man, because in Vieja, it really wasn't that hot at all. It was actually chilly and rainy, something we did not expect. It was actually really weird, but I'll tell you why a bit later. The only huge issue we had was when we found out that we weren't allowed to flush toilet paper down the toilet. So when you shit, you gotta throw your toilet paper in the trash can. That took a little bit of getting used to. While staying there, we saw a few critters, mostly birds. I'm not really a bird man, so that didn't really excite me all that much, but there was actually a group of bird watchers that were there, and they were freaking out over these birds that would hang out in the tree that was right outside of where we ate breakfast every morning. So that was kind of cool. That night, we went and had a taste of some local food in the little town we were staying, and I had heard that it was really easy to get decent vegan food there, because I figured most of what they ate there were vegetables, you know? But yeah, I was completely wrong. What I had was okay. It was a traditional Costa Rican dish that just tasted like veggie fried rice. It was good, but it wasn't amazing, and it wasn't new. It wasn't something exciting, you know? I wanted to try something that was different, and it was just, I don't know, it was alright. And it came with french fries, so that was kind of a bummer. You know, they had a lot of fruit, but Costa Rica was mostly known for its meat, you know, chicken, steak, fish, all things I have nothing to do with. But the little bit of food that I did have was just decent, but we mostly lived on peanut butter and jelly. While in Vieja, we went to Tenorio Volcano National Park. And we really wanted to see the volcano, but it was a little bit active at that time, so the trail was closed. But we did get to hike to this waterfall, which was absolutely incredible. The bluest water I've ever seen. It had been raining the night before, and they said that after it rains, the water is actually a little bit mucked up, and it's not quite as blue as normal. Sometimes it's actually gray, so we were expecting the worst, but we got super lucky, and it cleared up by the time we got there. So it was absolutely beautiful, man. After that, we hiked to another water area where you could actually see where the water turns from murky brown to bright blue. And it was awesome, but it took a bit of work to get there. There was some mud and some guck that we had to get through.
I need to stop dating white chicks.
Once you got there, it was absolutely worth it, man. The explanation they gave for the change in the water, it's actually caused by two minerals mixing together. I'm gonna steal my girlfriend's picture so you can see it because my picture got fucked up, but this was super cool. From Vieja, we traveled back towards Liberia to Guanacaste, and the drive was only about an hour and a half. But the crazy thing is, we went from weather that was rainy and in the 70s to weather that was like 90 to 95 and completely dry. And it's crazy how the weather can change within such a small distance there. And we stayed at this great place called El Sol Verde Lodge. And it was close to the park we wanted to go to, so that was awesome. And this place was really cool and was run by this really nice guy named, his name was either Gerald or Gerard, I can't remember now. But the room was small, but perfect for what we needed. The only problem I had was there was no door on the bathroom. It was just like a curtain. So whenever you wanted to take a dump, you had to send your roommate outside. The room also got a lot of bugs, you know, mostly ants and these little black bugs, which we never figured out what the hell those things were. But I was okay with that though. I don't really mind bugs as long as they're not cockroaches. And again, there was no air conditioning, and that kind of freaked me out, like I said, because it was like 95 degrees there. But we found out that this wasn't going to be a big deal because come 5 or 6 in the afternoon, the weather was just perfect, man. It got down to like the upper 70s, and that may sound a little bit hotter for some of you guys, but you're getting that breeze the entire time from the water, and it just felt amazing. So if you leave your windows open, it really gets your room to a perfect temperature. You know, one of the nights I even went outside and took a nap on one of the hammocks they had outside, and it felt incredible. You'd never imagine how relaxing laying on a hammock outside watching the sunset listening to black metal could possibly be, but let me tell you, it's something everybody should experience. While there, we visited Rincon de la Vieja, and this was a beautiful park where you get to hike through some woods down a path to a waterfall.
See, some more of this old Indiana Jones shit. What the fuck? Oh my god, bruh.
And entering the woods, we had really hoped we'd see monkeys because we read that some people get lucky and see 1 or 2. Some people go through the entire woods and don't see any. So I never thought that we would get anywhere near as lucky as we did. When we got in there, we could hear the monkeys. The only issue was they didn't sound very happy to me. Like, my girlfriend's like, oh, I hear him, let's go. And I'm like, man, those motherfuckers sound pissed. I don't know if I want to go down there. I seen monkey shines, and I heard about that lady on the news that got her fucking face torn off. My face ain't great, but it's all I got, alright? I'm not trying to get some reconstructive face surgery. But fuck it, we kept on going, and we ran up on an absolutely amazing sight, man. At first, it seemed like it was 2 or 3 monkeys that were jumping from the tree to tree. Then it turned into like 5 or 6 monkeys, some with babies on their backs, all jumping and swinging. It was like a movie, dude. And then it got a bit weird because we were seeing way too many monkeys. It ended up being something like 20 or something monkeys that were jumping from tree to tree, maybe more than 20, but a lot of them were just screaming. Ah! Ah! So I'm like, this is beautiful and everything, but something ain't right. And I wasn't sure how monkeys act to people if they're too close to their babies. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know what they might deem as being too close. So I'm like, we need to go, man. Then we heard something else that didn't sound like the monkeys. Something that was making this sound. And I was like, okay, this is fucking weird, man. I don't know what's going on. We turn around and she sees this animal. It's like a big, huge tree rat. And there was like maybe 4 or 5 of those things. And they were coming up behind the monkeys. Now, I don't know for a fact, but it seemed to me like these things were chasing the monkeys. They're called coati, and I haven't had a chance to look them up and see if they do actually hunt monkeys, but that's what it seemed like to me. But had that not happened, I don't know that we would have seen so many all at once. And it was just fucking beautiful, man, and absolutely incredible. The hike to the waterfall was strenuous, it was long.
Bruh.
But it wasn't terrible, you know. It was like 90 something degrees outside, sure, but while you were in the woods, the trees really gave you enough shade from the sun to make it totally bearable. And it was only really bad when you got out in the open, and that's when you really feel the heat. But in the woods itself, it was absolutely beautiful. Some of the most amazing and huge trees that I've ever seen in my entire life. And when you finally get to the waterfall, man, it makes that entire long, ridiculous trip so worth it. The waterfall was gorgeous. Sights like these, they aren't something you see every day, so you gotta take them in, man, because they are straight out of a picture book. Unlike the waterfall in Tenorio, you could actually get in the water here. And the water, of course, was freezing ass cold, but it felt so good on tired muscles sore from hiking the miles it took to get there. While in the area, we also checked out this really cool spa where you could brush yourself in volcanic mud and then wash it off in a natural hot spring. The hot spring was water that was actually heated up by the heat from the volcano. Like, how fucking cool is that, man? We also did something I never thought I'd do in a million years, man, and that was a zip line tour. I had been fucking with my girlfriend before we left, making jokes about doing it. I really wasn't serious. But once we got there, I was just like, this place is so amazing. Fuck it, man. Fuck it, let's do it. I'm terrified of heights, and so is my girlfriend, so this was a big deal for us. But I was ready to shit my pants at that first platform. But surprisingly, after I did the first one, the rest of them, they seemed like nothing, man. It was actually fun as shit. I would definitely do it again. From there, we drove back into the city of Brazalito, which was a small touristy beach town. Here we stayed at a great fancy schmancy hotel called the Conchal Hotel, which was close to the beach we wanted to go to, which was Playa Conchal. The cool thing about this beach was, instead of sand, the beach was actually made up of tiny crushed seashells, which was really cool. Not great for your feet to walk on, but you kind of get used to it after a while. So we basically spent the last 2 days there chilling, eating pretty decent food, drinking great drinks, hanging out by the pool, and just walking around this little beach town there, looking at souvenirs and taking in the last little bit of culture we could before we headed back to the States. Our flight back was really early, so we had to get up at like 4:30 in the morning to get to the airport on time. And we got to the airport only to find out that our flight was delayed 3 hours. So thank you and fuck you, American Airlines. But we got our flight and totally got back safely and at a decent time. So yeah, everything worked out. Overall, Costa Rica was amazing. It was great to see all the sites that we've been looking at in books for the past 6, 7, 8 months before we went. And it was cool experiencing a different culture than ours. The attitude there is what was so cool, man. Everyone was so nice and laid back, like no cares in the world, it seemed like. And by US standards, these people would seem kind of poor. You know, most of the people we saw appeared to make a living off of farming, but they were all so happy. We joked about how everyone there had this we don't give a fuck attitude. They'd walk in the middle of the damn street, you know, ride their bikes in the street at night wearing all dark colors with no reflectors on their bike, and it was just hilarious to me. Even the dogs had the we don't give a fuck attitude. Most of the dogs you see, they just be laying on the side of the fucking road, not doing shit. And the ones that we did see that were walking around, it seemed like almost every single one we saw, they had at least one damaged paw, which I assume was probably getting hit by a car, because they don't fucking move when you roll up on them. But yeah, if I ever went back, I would really need to know more Spanish, because it was a little bit hard to communicate with a lot of people there. But yeah, overall, this is definitely a place I would love to go back to. We were there a week and it felt like that would be enough, but there was just so much other shit that we didn't get to see that we wanted to, like the Cloud Force and a couple other parks. So if we're lucky enough to ever go back someday, we'll definitely spend more like 2 weeks there in order to just soak up everything that we can. But Costa Rica is a beautiful place, and I'm so stoked that I got to see it thanks to my girlfriend. But we're already saving up for whatever our next trip is going to be. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed this. I will be getting back to my regularly scheduled programming, vinyl vids, what do you want to know questions, movie reviews, all that good shit. But yeah, as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. And I will see you guys next time. Alright?